I kind of want to go back to Lake Placid since you did have to DNF. As you mentioned, it was from a mechanical, but can you kind of walk me through what happened in the race, um, kind of leading up to that point?
Sure. I mean, Lake Placid is sort of a race of excuses for me. And then one that finally pulled the plug, or caused me to pull the plug on it with the mechanical. But, I mean, I'd say it's like maybe a week and a half before the race, or we'll say 2 weeks before the race, my wife, Rebecca, got a stomach bug. And my mom was in town at the time, and then she got it. And then my daughter got it. And it was a couple of days later, and I thought I was in the clear. And then it hit me. So maybe like a week and a half to go, I spent basically 3 days in bed, like just absolutely terrible. Like I couldn't eat anything.
Mm-hmm.
If you've had a stomach bug, you know how it feels.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Not really race ready.
Yeah, no. I ended up just staying in bed and not really doing anything about it. But we ended up having to go to the ER with Charlie and all that, because she was vomiting so much. So that certainly threw a lot of things into question. And then shortly after that, that's when my hip started bothering me, and it just it really put me in like really wondering how that race was going to go.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, I showed up to the race itself. I obviously wasn't sick anymore by then. I still didn't, I did some workouts beforehand. Still didn't feel great. I just didn't really seem to have much pop, or like nearly as much as I normally would. Mm-hmm. And then I'd say it showed a bit on the swim. I just felt like I was like at the limit the whole swim. And it was like guys I'd normally swim with, I was absolutely killing myself to try to stay with. And then finally sort of fell off the back of a group after the first lap of the swim. And then, I mean, it didn't feel like absolutely terrible after that, but more so than I would have preferred. So, I mean, by the time my Di2 battery died, which I will put the disclaimer that I charged it the week prior.
I think it said something. I think you wrote something in your blog post like it was like really old, like you should have replaced it or something.
Yeah, I mean, I bought it used, and I was told
okay.
I was 4 years old, and that was well over a year ago. So I don't know what the lifespan of electronic shifting batteries is.
Yeah.
So, it showed the whole green light beforehand, and I thought good to go. I certainly haven't ridden 2,000 miles in the past week.
Right, it's supposed to be like 10,000 shifts or something like that. I have it on my bike as well.
Crazy, or you shouldn't have to worry about it. But certainly after that race, I bought a new Di2 battery. Because I mean, even with how I was feeling on the day, I was still sort of warming up into the effort. I was still riding at a pretty, at a good power output. I got an hour into the race, I was at like mid 280s on my power, which is now about standard for me in a full. Maybe a little even on the higher side, depending on the conditions. I mean, it's certainly a hilly course there.
Yeah.
But and I didn't feel like I was about to fade or anything. So I certainly think a good race could have been possible, and I was trying to stay in that mindset. But I mean, a good race with one gear certainly wasn't going to be possible.
Right. I mean, especially there. Have you raced Mont Tremblant yet?
I have not.
Okay. I was like, I know that course is like notoriously hilly too. I didn't know how it compared to Lake Placid. I haven't had a chance to do either yet.
I haven't done Mont Tremblant, but from my impressions, I think Lake Placid a little bit hillier.
Okay.
I've done Whistler as well, and it seems like Lake Placid wasn't quite as hilly as that one was.
Okay.
But I mean, there's certainly some long grinds in it.
Yeah. Did you have any kind of, I'll say like mental effects from the DNF? I know personally, and then most of the people I know that race are not a fan of DNFing for any reason. Was it simply a matter of just accepting that, okay, well, the battery is dead and it just doesn't make sense, or was a letdown, or kind of what was going on when you made that decision?
Uh, with I say how I reacted to it was sort of based on the fact that my hip was still bothering me at that point, like just before the race, and I was very questionable about the marathon. So honestly, it was a bit of a relief.
Okay.
Because if that hadn't happened, I would have refused the DNF no matter what. Like,
Right.
the run could have gone great, and could have had a good race, but it also, with how things were going, it could have gone terribly. And that was sort of like, it could have prevented something bad from happening, like for me injuring myself, because I'd resolved not to DNF unless it was pretty extreme circumstance. Like, since I had DNF'd earlier in the year at Campeche, I really didn't want that to happen again. But something like a mechanical is sort of like, there really would have been no reason to continue on, because by the end of the bike I would have been probably an hour plus behind if I'd decided to do it in one gear. And then I don't take running a marathon lightly.
Right. Well, it almost sounds like since your hip was still bothering you, it's like almost like it's a blessing in disguise. Like it took, especially when it's a mechanical, it's not some. There's nothing you can do about it, especially with the battery. Like if your chain came off, okay, you can put the chain back on, but the battery's dead. It's not. There's no charger you can go stick it on in the aid station.
Yeah, so I certainly had mixed feelings about it. But in that respect, it was a relief, and it did allow me to race Wisconsin not too much later. If I had finished Lake Placid and ran a hard marathon, that would have put me back considerably, I think, for doing another race. Whereas this way, I basically didn't miss a beat in my training, other than the travel to and from Lake Placid, and the work hours associated with going to a race. So I was able to jump back into training pretty quickly, at least bike and swim training. And that led to me having a good race in Wisconsin. So, like, looking back, I'm not disappointed that it happened. I don't think it was like a failure on my part by any means or anything like that. Whereas a race like Campeche, where something like that happened, it's that was a conscious decision that things weren't going well. It was my body just sort of let me down, type of deal. Whereas there wasn't a whole lot I could have done to mitigate what happened in Lake Placid. Other than having the newest equipment that doesn't die.
Yeah.
But there's enough costs in the sport that it's hard to justify every single upgrade.
Right. So as just a short, I guess, biography. I spent the last 8 years trying to get my professional license, and not quite fast enough. So I've kind of backed off. But I always took the approach that, like, your fitness justified the upgrade. Like, you didn't get the upgrade to, like, try to magically be faster. It's like you got faster, then you're like, okay, now I can justify getting this next little thing, whatever it is, a new bike frame or power meter pedals or the electronic shifting or whatever. I think I saw you talk with somebody about the merits of electronic shifting versus, I think he had left a comment about just using a mechanical because he didn't want to mess with the electronic.
Yeah, and I've had failures from the mechanical too, so it's not infallible. Just a few weeks after Lake Placid, I commute on a road bike that has mechanical Dura Ace, and cable snapped, and that happens too. If you can take care of things and know how to work on things, and it happens less often, but nothing's infallible. So, and otherwise, VI2 electronic shifting is typically pretty reliable. So,
that's
sort of part of the game a little bit.
Yeah, figuring out your equipment. I had over the years I've had various bikes and like tons of different mechanical issues with the gearing and the shifting. I have never had a cable snap, but I was like I've had like um the cogs kind of come loose on the hub and then it would stop shifting because it would like get caught up and just all kinds of nonsense. And so I was
Yeah,
like I eventually moved to electronic shifting, so there's not the variability of the tension when you are manually shifting it and putting a little displacing a little bit and kind of wiggling things around and
yeah. That was I think the second time, at least the second time I've had a cable snap on me. And
mm,
normally while I'm commuting something on my commuter bike because I simply just don't take care of it as well as
yeah,
my racing bike. But
yeah,
yeah, I mean as far as upgrades and everything, I think it depends pretty largely on the individual. If you have a good job and you have good money and you want to, I encourage it. More money to the sport, certainly good.
yeah,
Uh, so why not spend it on the things you like? I mean, I think people like us in our situation don't have a ton of resources. I mean, any money I spend on equipment or anything else is basically me saying, okay, but I'm going to have to work these hours to compensate for that
yeah,
for my training.
yeah,
Uh, or recovery or time with the family. Uh, so it's a factor, and I've always prioritized the upgrades that would allow me to become fitter,
hmm,
rather than the upgrades that are just gonna make me go faster on race day. Rather,
okay,
uh, so like power meter was one of the first things, like heart rate monitor. That sort of stuff is sort of the first obvious thing, so you can start getting that data and using it day in day
hmm,
out, and even getting a coach or something, like if you're hesitant about the cost, if you're considering anything before that, like a disc wheel or something, yeah, you should always prioritize the things that are going to make you a better athlete first, I think,
hmm.
for sure.
And we'll give a free plug to Epics here. I actually get my suits from Epics as well. What suit are you wearing from them?
So the past year approximately, they've had the Go Fierce Pro Edition.
Mm.
It's a one piece that sort of the zipper opens up, but it's still attached to in the back. Uh,
Okay.
yeah, I mean it's pretty tight fitting. I certainly don't notice anything flapping or any disadvantages on an aerodynamic side. I mean, I know I'm carrying about the same speeds as my competitors,
Mm.
at at least the same, if not lower power output. So I mean, as long as it fits well, and it seems to pretty well.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's got appropriate pockets, like one on each leg and one in the back for carrying gels and stuff. So that's been racing in that one for about the past year. Sort of different ones of their retail uh, like line, which are just sort of the generic designs,
Mm.
uh, and just buy online. But soon I'll be moving back to a custom suit, which was made like just for me with my
Mm.
design and all that stuff, which is sort of their bread and butter. It's the custom stuff. They
Yeah.
do a lot of design work, especially for teams. But for I mean, they also do it for individuals, which is what I intend on doing. So
Yeah. Does yours like um so I actually crashed at Eagle Man last year
oop,
and destroyed my suit, so I had to get a new one.
yeah,
And between the two, like my sleeves switched to that mesh versus like the same kind of solid material that was on the front that's on the back. Does yours also have that like super breathable mesh? It's like really fine on it
yeah.
as well.
So the most recent one is the differing thing is the Pro Edition label
Mm.
is they did change what material is wear a bit. So on the arms, rather than the mesh all the way down, it now has that gripper that helps keep it in one place on the
Okay.
arm. Because before that, it would bunch up a little bit, and
Okay.
about wrinkles on arm sleeves, it's the
Yeah.
worst thing in the world. So it actually has grippers that keeps it in place. I mean, I always go back and look at my pictures after the race from like the bike portion and stuff to see if there were any wrinkles or
Mhm.
how well fitting it was. And it seemed once you get it you come out of the swim and you get it where you want it, it seems to stay pretty well. But it
Yeah.
does still the mesh in a lot of places, like the back, because that mesh, it stretches well, which helps with the fit aspect of things, and then it's also really breathable. Like, it can hold some water if like you're pouring it on yourself or something. So if you want it, it's good, but it's, for the most part, it's pretty breathable, which is good for the hot races.
Yeah, I felt like I had a lot of overheating issues in previous suits. I had a suit from Kiwami when I was trying to go like ITU path, and then I had a suit from Epix that was non-sleeved, but it was just that regular material. They've since switched it out, and I felt like I overheated a lot. I felt like they held a lot of water, but like since I switched to the mesh, I don't feel like I have like near the overheating issues I had before. I think it was just when water sits next to your skin, you're going to overheat instead of it evaporating. So once the mesh was there, it was like I could dissipate a little bit more of that and mitigate some of that issues for me. And I can overheat, when it's 60 degrees outside if I've got just how it works for me, I guess. So that's been nice. I was just curious, like, if your suit was similar.
Yeah, so it's that mesh, it depends on the conditions, of course. Like on the bike, it's never gonna stay wet because it's gonna be constantly dried by the wind.
Yeah.
But yeah, on the run, if it's really humid, it might stay a little bit wetter, simply because that it won't evaporate off as well.
Yeah.
But yeah, it certainly dries out pretty quick in dry conditions, like here in Colorado where I am now.
Yeah.
Yeah, I personally, I don't feel like I ever have many issues with overheating, but I certainly have a lot of issues with dehydration.
Okay.
I have a pretty high sweat rate, and I don't frequently feel like I've gotten like extremely hot that like it's gonna pass out from it or something like that. I just sweat so much that by the time I get to that point, I just can't push hard enough to make it happen. Like I just get really dehydrated. Come here, kiddo.
Thinking about you're talking about the wrinkles on the sleeves, which is like everybody obsesses about all these little tiny details. I just thought, so it just made me think about, where do you sit on the side of shaved legs versus not shaved legs in terms of, do you do it and does it matter for your performance on the bike?
Yeah, I definitely do it. There's been at least a couple people out there that have tested it, and depending on how hairy your legs are, of course, naturally, then it certainly makes a difference on the bike. I haven't tested it myself, but I trust the people that have. But even the past couple of races that I did, I took the time in transition one, which made my T1 times a lot slower, but I put on socks to aero socks.
Okay.
Which I sort of deemed it, the Ironman bike leg is long enough, even if it's like half the benefit that they say it is, it could end up being worth it.
Yeah.
So yeah, sometimes unfortunately that can come at the expense of missing out on like staying with other people when you out onto the bike, and that happened in Chattanooga. But I'm not a huge fan of playing tactics and staying behind people and trying to gain every last legal advantage as you can there. So
yeah,
I'd rather, put on my socks and race my own race.